Well, I'm heartened by what I see, especially in this district, and more importantly, let me say something about the insurance industry, oftentimes maligned, and hospitals. They're leading the way. They're leading the way. George would probably know this, but maybe not many others, but Mark Bertolini, the president and CEO of the Aetna, and I've said this at other forums, but in essence he says, with the healthcare delivery system in America, here's what you have. Healthcare as a total of GDP in the country represents now, it used to be almost 20%, but since just the inception, remember it just starts the Affordable Care Act, it's now at 18.6% of our GDP. Now, the rest of the world, in terms of delivering healthcare, is at 8 or 9% of their GDP. I want you to follow this logic through. So we're at 18.6. That represents, and we were well on our way to going beyond 20% of our costs. If we were to reduce that cost to under 14% of our GDP, we would flatline our national debt. We would have enough room to expand Medicare, not curtail it, or voucher it, or cut it, but expand it to deal with the real issues that elderly people face. And we can do that without raising any taxes. Now, shouldn't we be sitting down talking about that? Shouldn't we be sitting at the table and saying, if these, in fact, there's 10 independent studies that verify this out, there is more than $700 to $800 billion annually that is waste, inefficiencies, replication and duplication of efforts within our healthcare delivery system. It is the most inefficient business model in the world and in the history of this country. And so, if we were to just use the tools given in the Affordable Care Act, which, as I said earlier, a number of our companies, hospitals are already about that. If we drive down those costs, the nation's debt as a percentage of GDP is around 4% as a percentage of GDP. So by driving it under 14, if it's at 18.6, driving it under 14, you get it, you can do the math, we flatline the national debt. Imagine if we get it down to 12%, still greater than any other nation in the world, spending more, but that provides us the wherewithal to do the infrastructure projects that we need to do and to make sure that we're able to expand our programs so that they're there for our people. What does it require us to do? It requires us to stop this nonsense about saying that there's death panels out there waiting for people. Do you know what a death panel is? Death panel is your ability to sit down with your doctor, with your family, and say, when it comes to end of life, which is the most expensive cost as it relates to Medicare, how do you want to go? The goal should be that every family gets the opportunity to determine that, preferably in their home, surrounded by their loved ones. Instead of saying, oh no, these are panels that are going to decide who gets care and who doesn't get care. That was so wrong-headed. We can do this as a country. And why I'm so optimistic? How about this? Mark Bertolini, the president of the Aetna, guess who hired them to go administer their health care with this new, different kind of paradigm that the Affordable Care Act sets up? What does the Affordable Care Act set up? I mean, why was this so important? It's because we needed a new outcome. We needed an emphasis on the patient and on patient wellness. So, looking at all this, what country do you think hired the Aetna to go do its work? Would you believe China? A place that has universal health care already. But why? Why did it bring in the Aetna? Because here's what America has that nobody else has. Here's what you've already paid for in health care that nobody talks about. You're all familiar with the National Institute of Health and the National Institute of Science. Who paid for that? You did. The National Institute of Health, the National Institute of Science, our university system, our labs, they have come up with the most advanced form of medicine and technology in the world. Many of you, I know, are familiar with the Genomic Project. We are on the verge of enormous success and breakthroughs that are happening almost daily as we speak. How did we get to that point? No one waved a magic wand. It got there because slow and steady and patient investment made by you, the taxpayer. You also make investments on a regular basis that have come out of your paycheck. I get very upset when people in Washington say that Social Security and Medicare are entitlements. Really? Have you checked your pay stub out? You ever looked and seen what you put in to the program? Tell me I haven't put in enough. Tell me I put in too much. But don't tell me it's an entitlement. It's something you paid for. And not only did you pay for that, you as a taxpayer also paid for the National Institute of Health, the National Institute of Science, for the labs and technicians in our universities, all throughout the country. So this enormous investment has gotten us to this point where your grandchildren will easily live to be 100 years old in good health because of what we know, because of investments that were made. Why you? The taxpayer. And now the debate in Congress is going to be, well, for your reward, here's what we'd like to do. We'd like to cut back your Social Security with change CPI. We'd like to cut back your Medicare and voucher it. Why? Why? You paid for it.